Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into something you literally use every single day, but let's be honest, you probably never really think deeply about it. We are tracing the arc of money and power. It's a 10,000-year cycle that uncovers the incredible and sometimes pretty dark relationship between human wealth and the people who control it.
Okay, right off the bat, let's shatter a huge myth. We've all seen those history textbooks, right? The ones saying that before money, people just bartered, like awkwardly trading a chicken for a loaf of bread. Well, guess what? Anthropologists have searched for over a century, and there's actually zero evidence of any society ever working like that. The barter economy? It's a complete myth. Money didn't actually come from trading stuff.
So that leaves us with a pretty massive historical puzzle. I mean, if money didn't start with neighbors trying to swap chickens for bread, where did it actually start? What was the true spark that brought the whole concept of money into existence?
Well, the real answer? It's memory and debt. Picture a tiny village, say 10,000 years ago. If you helped your neighbor fix their roof, they don't hand you a coin, they just owe you a favor, right? That mental record, who owes what to whom, that was literally the first money. In fact, archaeologists have discovered that ancient Mesopotamian temples were recording these exact types of debts in silver 5,000 years ago. That is way before the first coin was ever minted. Basically, money was invented just to keep score.
But here's the thing. The moment you can keep score, you can rig the game. Every single form of currency humans have ever come up with follows this exact 5-step cyclical arc. Check this out. Step 1, money gets created. Step 2, people start to trust it. Step 3, power captures it. Step 4, power quietly drains its value. And step 5, total collapse. Whether we're talking about seashells, coins, paper, or gold, it's the exact same pattern repeating for 10 millennia.
So let's look at how power actually managed to capture it in the first place. Early on, people used things like shells, but that was super fragile. If outsiders flooded a town with a bunch of cheap shells, boom, the local money collapsed. The real game changer arrived around 600 BC in Lydia, that's modern-day Turkey. People there used electrum, which is this natural blend of gold and silver. But the purity was all over the place. So the Lydian kings stepped in. They melted it down, standardized the weight, and stamped it with the royal seal. Now that stamp was a guarantee of trust. But catch this. For the very first time, money literally carried a ruler's face. Money and political power fused into one single object. And it handed whoever wore the crown a temptation they just couldn't resist.
And what rulers do with that temptation? Well, that's where things get kind of dark. Take the Roman Empire. The Roman denarius started out as an almost pure silver coin. Beautiful, right? But running an expanding empire is wildly expensive. So the emperors figured out a magic trick. They'd collect those pure silver coins back in through taxes, melt them down, mix in a bunch of cheap copper, and then restamp them with the exact same face value. They were secretly creating money out of thin air. By the year 270, the denarius had barely 5% silver left in it. The empire was quite literally inflating its way into a massive crisis.
Now fast forward and jump over to the other side of the world. The exact same trick played out in China, just with paper. Lugging around giant strings of heavy copper coins was exhausting, so merchants started using paper receipts instead. Eventually, the government took control of this, and when the Mongols took over, Kublai Khan basically said, okay, paper money is now the only legal currency, backed by absolutely nothing but his say-so. He turned plain paper into the wealth of a whole kingdom. But paper has the exact same flaw as a watered-down Roman coin. Actually, it's way worse. You don't even have to melt it down to cheat. You just print more. The emperors printed so much that the money lost all of its value, and the Ming dynasty eventually had to just crawl back to using metal.
So, for most of history, money kind of just sat still. But then, Renaissance Italy changed the game completely. At the time, the church had banned charging interest on loans. They called it the sin of usury. But the Medici family, who ran this massive banking empire, were brilliant. They found a sneaky loophole. They basically dressed their interest up as a currency exchange. Say a merchant deposited money in Florence. They'd collect it months later in London in a completely different currency. The bank's profit was just hidden neatly inside the exchange rate. Just like that, the Medicis turned money into this fast, invisible, abstract network. And as history shows us, the harder money is to see, the easier it becomes to quietly drain.
To stop kings and rulers from just endlessly draining value by firing up the printing press, the world eventually landed on the logic of the gold standard. Think of it like chaining a paper banknote to a heavy physical gold bar. The rule was beautifully simple. Every paper note was just a promise. You could walk right into a bank and swap that piece of paper for a set amount of actual physical gold. By the late 1800s, this meant the entire money supply was strictly chained to how much metal a country actually possessed. It put a hard physical limit on government power.
But what happens when that chain becomes inconvenient for the people in power? Well, it gets broken. In 1914, World War I hit. Government suddenly needed to spend way more money than their gold vaults could handle. So they just quietly suspended the rule and printed whatever they needed to fight. This led directly to 1923 Germany. Defeated and drowning in debt, they printed money around the clock. The resulting hyperinflation was so catastrophic that people were literally burning wheelbarrows of banknotes just to stay warm. So, out of the ashes of a Second World War, the world needed a new system. Enter the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement. This tied the world's currencies to the US dollar and then tied the US dollar directly to gold. Now, that new system rested entirely on America having enough gold in its vaults to back up the world's money. But by the late 1960s, the US was spending massive amounts of money on the Vietnam War, on new domestic programs. Other countries got nervous and started demanding their physical gold, and the vaults were draining fast. Which brings us to a huge turning point, August 15, 1971. President Richard Nixon went on live television and severed the US dollar from gold entirely. He famously told the public it was temporary. Well, it was permanent. In that one single broadcast, the last remaining link between our money and any physical thing on planet Earth was totally cut.
Which brings us straight to the reality of the cash sitting in your wallet right this second. Fiat money. The word fiat is actually Latin for let it be done. What it means today is that our modern money has value for one reason only. The government says it does. It's not a claim on gold, it's not a claim on anything. It's only worth something because you, me, and everyone around us agree to just keep pretending that it is. The entire global money supply is now backed by absolutely nothing you can physically hold.
And here is the absolutely crucial point. What happens when money is no longer chained to a rock? The supply has no limit. A government can just create billions with a single keystroke. And the result of that? A staggering 80% loss in the purchasing power of the US dollar since Nixon cut it loose in 1971. The number on the bill stays the exact same, but it just buys you less and less every single year. Remember the Romans watering down their coins? Yeah, we stopped calling it that. Now we call it monetary policy. But make no mistake, it is the exact same trick.
This dynamic had to hit a breaking point eventually, right? For decades, the fiat system held together. But then came the massive financial crash of 2008. Banks had made these enormous, reckless bets on home loans. And when that house of cards came crashing down, giant institutions like Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. The government's response showed us exactly what fiat money truly is. Central banks literally conjured trillions of brand new dollars out of thin air on a computer screen and used them to rescue the exact same banks that caused the crisis in the first place. The risk-takers got bailed out, while everyday people absorbed the cost, losing their homes, their jobs, and watching their savings slowly evaporate.
Coming out of the rubble of that 2008 crisis, millions of people were left hurting. And from that pain, a really dangerous question started bubbling up. Why do we trust these institutions with our money at all? I mean, if they hold the power to just conjure wealth to save themselves while actively eroding the value of ours, why do we keep participating in their system?
That single question sparked two completely different, totally divergent paths for the future of digital money. On one hand, on October 31, 2008, as a direct response to those bank bailouts, Satoshi Nakamoto published the framework for Bitcoin. This was a decentralized system, no owner, a totally transparent public record, and a hard, unbreakable cap of 21 million coins. No one can ever print past that, period. But on the other hand, governments were watching this digital currency revolution unfold, and they drew a very different conclusion. They started developing central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. These are state-issued, centrally controlled, and fully trackable.
So how does the CBDC actually work? Well, according to the sources, it's a purely digital form of your national currency, issued straight from the central bank. And look, it sounds incredibly convenient, for sure. But it fundamentally changes the concept of privacy. Unlike handing someone physical cash, a state-issued digital currency means every single transaction you make can be seen and tracked. Plus, it introduces this wild idea of programmable money. That means your money could literally be programmed to expire if you don't spend it fast enough, or it could be blocked from buying certain things, all depending on who holds the keys.
Which brings us right to where we are today. We are standing at a massive historical crossroads. For 10,000 years, money has never just been a neutral tool to buy stuff. Never. It has always been a quiet machine that dictates who holds power over whom. And what's absolutely crucial to understand right now is that the next version of this machine, the digital future of money, is being decided and locked in as we speak. in rooms you and I will never sit in. One path offers a system with no owner and a hard limit. The other path offers a system that sees everything and can be programmed.
So as we wrap up this explainer, here's the big takeaway. The real trick of money, it works best on you when you aren't paying attention to it. But guess what? Right now, you are paying attention. When this next era of money inevitably lands on your phone, the only question that truly matters is the exact same one humanity has faced in every single era before this. Who will be holding the controls, and will it be you? Thanks so much for exploring this incredible history with me. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I'll see you on the next explainer.